We sit down with 3 candidates for the U.S. Senate. You'll hear talk about their efforts to win their respective primaries. And we hear from the North Texas Democrat who sent shockwaves across the political landscape when he won a long-held state Senate seat. This week in Texas.
Hello again, I'm Tom Abrams. Thanks for being with us. This week in Texas, we do focus on the race for the United States Senate. Every challenger trying to unseat Republican Senator John Cornyn, who faces a primary challenge from Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and from U.S. Congressman and Houstonian Wesley Hunt. Whoever wins that primary faces the top vote getter in the Democratic primary, which features Dr. Ahmad Hassan, State Representative James Talarico, and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. You'll hear from Crockett and from Talarico in a moment, but we begin with Wesley Hunt.
The campaign is going as expected. It's going great. And I'm not just saying that just because it feels good or it sounds right. I'm saying that because I've been able to travel around the state of Texas. I've been able to look at voters in their eyes, and I have been to the Panhandle. I've been to Texarkana. I've been to West Texas, Lubbock, El Paso, Amarillo, Bowie County, everywhere. And I'm the only one of the 3 of the people in this race that's actually out here running a campaign and actually meeting the people where they are. And the thing that I keep hearing over and over and over again, ad infinitum, is this: Wesley, we are looking for an alternative. Wesley, thank you for giving us an alternative. Wesley, you're the guy that can win this primary and win this general. Wesley, you are the believer that we need, the believer in Christ that we need to lead the state of Texas forward. I keep hearing this over and over and over again. And then for the next 30 days, I'm probably going to be in a different city, in a different county every day for the next 30 days. But at the end of the day, that's just what it takes. And I think by the time we get to the end of this experiment, we're going to be doing just fine.
So what does it say to you that some of the attacks are now coming your way?
Well, you know, I'm an Apache pilot by trade. I'm a West Point grad. I'm somebody that served this country in combat. And whenever you're in a firefight, when the enemy starts shooting back at you, and I've been there before in real life, what you realize is that, we are right over the target zone. We have now stirred up a hornet's nest. This is exactly where we need to be. The fact that the NRSC is attacking us, the fact that ads are going to be run against us attacking us, means that we are truly a threat to the system. And what I love about my campaign is that I am not a product of that system. I'm a product of Texas. And thank God that Texans are going to be the ones to decide the outcome of this race, not D.C.
I do want to ask you about one ad that famously used AI to alter your movements and make you run off. Your thoughts about that?
Parlor trick games that obviously didn't work, because now you have to double down and now you have to run even more ads against me just a few months later. And if I wasn't doing very well, if I wasn't a threat to the system, if I wasn't a true threat to John Cornyn, they wouldn't be running these ads at all. And so, again, the fact that they altered my state, showed me running away, which, again, I find that to be very interesting as a combat pilot, as the only one of the 3 of us that actually served this nation in combat, to show me running away when I was the only one that chose to run into combat. It's a bit insulting, but also, again, it also just tells me that this is exactly what I need to be doing. And the fact of the matter is this: I never run from anything. I've never run from a fight. I believe in term limits. That's why I term limited myself already in my congressional seat to 2 terms. And I'm already committing to the people of Texas that I'm going to be their senator for 2 terms, 12 years. I'm going to run into the fight, run into the fire, run to D.C., take Texas values with me, and then leave. And the thing I'm hearing more and more about this race is that John Cornyn has been around for way too long. The first time he got elected to office as a judge, I was 11 months old. It is time for the next generation of leadership to step into the fray, step into this fight, and run to D.C. to make it better and leave it better than we found it, and not be a part of the problem.
Now, some of the polling, if it is to be believed, and I don't know what any internal polling you have might say, is that when you look at the primary race, you're in 3rd. But if you look at a projection, if you were to win and you were to face either Talarico or Crockett, that you would fare better perhaps than the others in the primary. Your thoughts about that?
Fascinating. I think you were referring to a general election poll that came out not that long ago. And again, that was the general electorate. And it's amazing to see that we are already outperforming a 24-year incumbent in the general election against James Talarico and Jasmine Crockett. Isn't that fascinating? I want to also point out the fact that even in that poll, they had a 24-year incumbent polling in the 20s. Now, we have recent data that has now just come out that has us doing very well, has us strongly in second place. And again, for us, it's not about money. It's about getting our message to everyone in Texas because people are thirsty for something new and for someone new. One thing I want to point out too about all these about all the polling that's come out is the number of undecideds. I mean, we are double-digit undecided, 15 to 20% undecided. How do you have two men that have been around for decades and yet people of Texas are still undecided on who they want to pick? It's because they're looking for another option. And thank God that he blessed me with the ability to give the people of Texas just that.
One last question, and that is about President Trump. He has not yet endorsed. He is friendly with all three of you. How big a shift in this race would that be depending on who he endorses if he makes an endorsement?
Great question. Well, you know, he stayed out of it so far. I mean, we do know that there are two Republican incumbents in the entire country that he has not endorsed, and John Cornyn is one of them. With a month out from the election, obviously the president's support would be huge. But it's not about earning the president's support, although that's important. It's about earning the support of the voter and building the trust with the voter. And I also believe that President Trump believes in merit. You got to earn his support. You got to earn his vote, and the president likes to back and pick winners. And I think that's why he has stayed out of this race so far, to see who will emerge as being the hardest working person, the hardest working candidate. Who are the people of Texas really going to connect with? He's waiting to see what happens there before he puts his finger on the scale. And thank God that he has, because he has stayed out of this race, it's what's given me a legitimate shot to be your next senator.
Are you saying that because you don't know if he would endorse you?
I don't know. I've spoken to the White House, but I've never disclosed the conversations that I have with the White House. President Trump is the master of the art of the deal. He is the master of seeing how things play out. And I don't know who he would endorse in this under the current circumstances, but I do know that as long as he stays out of it, there's still support that can be earned. And again, this is about earning it.
Thanks to Wesley Hunt for his time. When we come back, we jump to the Democratic side of the primary. One-on-one interviews with Jasmine Crockett and James Talarico when This Week in Texas returns. Welcome back. Early voting for the March primary begins February 17th. We are getting increasingly close. And one of the races at the top of the ballot is that race for U.S. Senate. There are 8 Republicans on the ballot. There are 3 Democrats, including 2 who currently hold elected office. We spoke with State Representative James Talarico and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett as they seek their party's nomination. So how's the campaign?
It's been great. We have so much energy and excitement around our campaign, and so many people showing up at our events, our town halls, our rallies. We have so many people donating to the campaign. We have about 250,000 people who have signed up to donate $5, $10, $15 at a time, and we have shattered grassroots fundraising records with that people-powered movement. And then we've got a ton of people signing up to volunteer. Over 13,000 people have signed up to knock doors and make phone calls and send text messages, write postcards. And so we are truly building a people-powered movement. We're not taking a dime from corporate PACs, and so this is powered by people. And I think that's exactly what we need if we're going to take on this broken, corrupt political system.
So I've seen one of your social media ads where you talk about the difficult decision to get on TV early and the expense of that. Tell me about that thought process.
Well, you know, we have to reach Texans where they are. That is on social media, on TikTok, on Instagram. It's on podcasts that they listen to. It's knocking on their doors. It's calling them up on the phone. But it's also reaching them through more traditional means. That's TV ads and mailers, and those things are expensive. And it's why we have this grassroots donor army of people giving small amounts of money to make sure that we can get our message across to as many Texans as we can before they start voting in a matter of days.
So if you put any stock in polling, the first poll that came out once your opponent got in the race showed her with the lead. And a more recent poll showed that had flipped. If in fact that's the case, why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's a lot of momentum behind our campaign. People are really hungry for leaders who are going to take on this broken, corrupt political system. The reason politics is so terrible now is not because of any one politician, it's because the system itself is broken. You think about who was sitting behind the president on Inauguration Day. You think about who owns the 24-hour cable news networks that treat news as entertainment. You think about who owns the algorithms that keep us all angry and divided. It is a handful of billionaires who have redesigned our politics for their own profit, and they pit us against each other on an hourly basis. They divide us by party, by race, by gender, by religion, so we don't notice that they're picking our pockets, that they are closing our schools, that they're gutting our health care, that they're cutting taxes for themselves and raising taxes on all of us. And so I've said that the real fight in this country is not left versus right, it's top versus bottom. And I think that's why you see so many people joining our people-powered campaign, because they know that we are bringing people together to take on those billionaires who run this country.
Is that by proxy essentially focusing on the economy as an issue?
Yes, it's also focusing on political reform. You know, I've laid out a comprehensive anti-corruption package banning super PACs, banning corporate PACs, banning members of Congress from trading stocks and enriching themselves while they're in public office. We have to get big money out of our politics, out of our government. We don't have a government of, by, and for the people anymore. We have a government of, by, and for the billionaires. And I think it's going to be necessary to build a people-powered movement to take on those special interests and make this government and this economy work for regular people again.
As a U.S. Senator, you would have one vote among 50 or 51, depending.
Yeah.
How do you make any of that happen?
Well, one, I think we have to abolish the filibuster. I think if you have a majority in the United States Senate, you should be able to govern, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats. Right now, just one senator can hold up the agenda of the majority, and that's not a democracy. There should be minority rights in the United States Senate, but we also need to allow the majority to govern. And so I'm all for, if a senator wants to get up and actually filibuster, wants to talk for an extended amount of time to make their point heard, that's great. But that's not what we have right now. Any senator can just threaten to filibuster, and then it kills any bill coming to the floor of the U.S. Senate. So I would be for reforming that filibuster so that we can allow the majority to govern. And if that's the Democratic Party in 2027, then we'll be able to push through this anti-corruption package, be able to bring down the cost of health care, be able to pass universal early childhood education, and finally make billionaires pay their fair share in taxes.
What do you need to see happen with this campaign between now and the start of early voting, which is very close?
Well, you know, I'm probably the most unknown candidate in the race in either party. I'm going up against some of the biggest names in Texas politics. And so I've got my work cut out for me. I've got to introduce myself to voters all over the state. You know, Houston alone, getting to know everybody in this big city is a challenge. And so you know, I'm trying to get out there in every corner of Texas, introduce myself, tell people about my values, my vision, my track record in the Texas legislature of fighting and delivering for working people. And then hopefully I'll be able to earn people's trust, earn their respect, and maybe earn their votes.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I think you know that before I was a legislator, I was a middle school teacher on the west side of San Antonio. And so my experience in the classroom as a public school teacher is really what shapes my public service. It's what motivates this campaign. We have students and teachers all over Houston, all over Texas, who are getting a raw deal. And I think we need a teacher in the U.S. Senate who's going to fight for them in the halls of power.
So what's harder to control, a classroom of middle schoolers or a room full of politicians?
Always the politicians. I often joke that teaching middle school is the best preparation for politics. If you can handle the drama of a middle school classroom, you can certainly handle the drama on the floor of the House or the floor of the U.S. Senate.
I'm joined now by Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. She is also a candidate for the U.S. Senate, running for the Democratic nomination. Thanks so much for being with us.
Absolutely.
So how is it different running for Senate than from Congress, just aside from the geography?
Oh, aside from the geography, I think that is the biggest difference, right? And you're talking about the state of Texas, one of the largest when we talk about land mass, and one of the most expensive when it comes to the media markets. And so that's that part of it. But generally speaking, when you're talking about running in a state like Texas, we're not really like one state. We're kind of like 5 different states in one, because we have different personalities in the various regions in the state of Texas. So it's really important to understand the regions that you're in and make sure that you're communicating what matters most in those regions.
I'm guessing the issues are different that you're finding as you meet with potential voters.
Generally speaking, the issues are the same, but the priorities, right? Like the way that we rank them, they may look a little different, right? And so, you know, obviously when we start talking about border communities, I would say that making sure that CBP has what they need, but also making sure that immigration is done in a smart and right way is like very, very big. It's a lot bigger issue than, say, in the DFW area. In the DFW area, and really in the entire state, in the entire country, affordability is number one. And what it looks like looks different. When I talk to my farmers and ranchers, they're absolutely concerned about whether or not they are going to be able to keep their farms and ranches. And that boils down to a lot of things. We've had water issues for a very long time where we haven't had enough water, but also the tariffs, knowing that we export so much when it comes to the goods that we produce, as well as the food that we raise and that kind of stuff.
And so what do you say to them when they talk about affordability? What are some of your solutions or ideas that you would take from one side of the Capitol to the other? Yeah,
so this is, you know, one of the things that I actually spent a lot of time working on. I worked on the Ag Committee, so I understand the importance of getting that farm bill passed that is currently now 3 years late on a 5-year farm bill. But they haven't seen any increase as it relates to getting the support that they need as it relates to the cost of their inputs. So I tell them that I understand their issues, and I think that that's helpful because they don't think of probably the city girl as the one that understands their challenges. But I do, because I've worked on this stuff. You know, right now I went down to Amarillo not too many days ago because Tyson is laying off people at their plant, the tune of like 1,700 people. And this particular plant is responsible for processing beef. Well, I actually worked on legislation as relates to what we saw coming as it relates to the ranchers. It just got exacerbated with what we saw happening with the tariffs and with the support that Argentina has seen.
So when you travel around the state, you talk about being from the city. Do you find in West Texas people are open to listening to you, even though you're from Dallas?
I am good to go. When I graduated, you know, I was down in Houston for law school, but when I left Houston, I went to East Texas. So I was out in Texarkana. That's actually where I started in politics, and so I was the party chair out in Bowie County. And so I was in my 20s when I was doing that, and I was helping other people get elected. And so people, I think they expect one thing of me, and then they're like, oh, maybe not so much. She really does understand, because I did know what it was like to wake up and smell the smell from the paper plant. I also knew what it was like to have to go to Shreveport or Dallas just to be able to see a specialist, a healthcare specialist. So I think when people know that I'm not just talking at them, but I've lived a certain life, I do think that it brings about a little bit of calm, because I think that for the longest there's been this divide between rural and urban, especially when we start to talk about Democrats. But a Democrat who actually has lived in rural Texas, who still owns property in rural Texas, who has never forgotten kind of where she started politically was in rural Texas, I think that it actually is one of those things that opens people's minds.
Why do you think a Democrat, particularly you, could win statewide when a Democrat hasn't done that in a very long time in Texas?
Yeah, we're living in strange times, aren't we? In a lot of ways, though, right? And I think that is why we have an opportunity. We know that in Florida, in Miami specifically, they flipped their mayoral after 30 years. And so I asked some of my colleagues about, like, what happened down there, you know? Talked to them. I've talked to Senator Warnock and others in Georgia, like, hey, what did that look like and what did it take? So I will tell you that the environment is ripe for a change, because people are frustrated, no matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent. And if you're in the state of Texas, you know that the Republicans control every lever of government. They control the state level and they control the federal level. And so if you have complaints or concerns right now, there's only one place to point those concerns. Number two, this is the first time since the 90s, which was the last time that we had a Governor Ann Richards, a Democrat. We have people that are running up and down the ballot, so state house, state senate, as well as U.S. House, instead of us leaving over 40% of those races unfielded. What that means is that there's continuous communication with the voters. And then finally, usually we start off with a great candidate, somebody who has an amazing resume, but isn't quite known. And so we spend a lot of money. Colin Allred, a very good friend that I serve with, his name ID was pretty low. And so it was a lot of money that had to be spent so that people could kind of learn his name. We need to start with someone who's already known so that voters are like, okay, well, in the primary, we know who this is, and voters in general know who this is. But now if we're going to add to the voters, which is what we need to do, we don't need somebody who's like saying, oh, well, let me get to know the people in general. We got to go get those outliers, the people that haven't been participating.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Texas, we can do this. We can absolutely do this. So listen, we deserve better and we can have better. Right now, we're fighting as it relates to health care. We have 2 senators that voted against making sure that we could have access to health care. Enough is enough. So let's show them where Texas is tough.
All right. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, running for the U.S. Senate. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks to Jasmine Crockett and to James Talarico. When we come back, you'll hear from State Senator-elect Taylor Ramett. The special election for Senate District 9 left a lot of people outside of Texas scratching their heads. But it might not have come as that much of a surprise to people who were paying attention. That district in Tarrant County in North Texas has not had a Democrat in the Texas Senate for more than 30 years. It became vacant when Kelly Hancock took over as the interim comptroller for the state. And then last week, Democrat Taylor Ramett beat Republican Lee Wamgans by close to 15 points. Our partners at ABC News spoke with Ramett about his win.
I think there's a lesson to be learned no matter what party you're in. If you work hard and you focus on the issues such as lowering costs, healthcare, and really focusing on working people, that's how you'll get people to show up and vote. People are tired of the campaigns of outrage and the hyperpartisanship. They just want to have a better life here and an opportunity. There is so much work still to do. We have a community to serve now, and the constituents are going to be able to talk with me and learn and dial in the issues. This is a continuation of learning what we've been hearing on the campaign trail. And once I'm sworn in, we'll have even more ability to do that. I really want to say that you can't represent anyone if you don't love everyone. And that's what this campaign in this Senate seat will be about.
Ramett is filling an unexpired term, but he is now the incumbent heading into the March primary and the November general election, at which he would face Republican Lee Wamgans again. He told ABC he's already won twice, referencing the special election and then the runoff, and that he'll win a 3rd time in the fall. Some final thoughts when we come back. That does it for This Week in Texas. Thanks for being with us. Now, last week we mentioned interviews with a pair of candidates seeking the Democratic nomination for lieutenant governor. We will have those interviews with Vicki Goodwin and Marcos Velez for you on our next episode. You can watch all of our previous episodes, by the way, on demand at abc13.com or wherever you stream ABC 13. Until we see you again, have a great week and be kind to one another.